Hi, welcome to my YouTube channel. Thank you for joining me. Today it's all about creating CV for a healthcare assistant job. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to my channel, comment, share and like my videos. Subscribing and commenting and sharing my videos is going to encourage me to produce more content for you. If you're ready, let's get right into it. So first and foremost, I want to make this clear. What is a CV? A CV is a summary of your education, your skills, your experiences that will enable you to get an interview. So take note, it's not your life history to give you a job, but it's a summary of the key things that make you qualify for a job so you can get an interview. So we write CVs for an interview, not to get a job. So it's important to keep that in mind. So this should help you, this should guide you in terms of what to include and what not to include. So we're only looking for things that are relevant for a specific job. That's what we're looking for. And we're looking to provide that in a summary format that will make it easier for the employer to look at and pick you for an interview, not for a job. So it's important that your CV is done correctly. So make sure you read it and you know it word by word, and make sure that there are no spelling mistakes. Get people to check it for you. Check it yourself and make sure that it's right, because things like mistakes can sometimes put off interviewers. So make sure you get that right. It's important. Right, I'm just going to move on to tailoring your CV. It's important to make sure that every job that you apply for, it's tailored. Your CV is tailored to that job description. So I would expect, if you're applying for a healthcare assistant job in a hospital, maybe NHS, that you're around the skills, that you're showing that you understand the 6 C's that are used in NHS. So if you're applying for a domiciliary job, I would expect your CV to be different, and it's talking about understanding people, being in their own home, comfort, privacy. So I'd expect those two to be different. So make sure that they are. Don't be lazy. Put your effort in. Make sure that you tailor your CV to each job description. So the next, I'm going to talk to you about chronological CV. There are different types of CVs that can be done, but I thought for a healthcare assistant job, this would be a perfect one. If you want me to talk about the different types of CV, I'm more than happy to do it. And I can do that for you. So you want to make sure that you're listing everything in reverse chronological order. So starting with the most recent work that you've done, going backwards. So formatting and the layout of your CV is going to make it easier for the employer to read. So it's very important that you make it as easy as possible for the person who's going to read it. Bear in mind, employers have a job, so having to look at CVs, it's an additional amount of work they need to do. So they skim read CVs looking for particular information that matches the job description. So make sure you make this a lot easier for them to do. So I'm talking about bullet points. Make sure that if you're using the circle bullet points, use circle bullet points throughout the CV. If you're centering your bullet points, make sure this is consistent all the way. If you're using a font type, make sure it's consistent in your CV, because that's really, really important. It makes it easier to find the information you need. If you are not very good at creating CV using Word, I would encourage you to perhaps use Europass CV. I'm going to put a link for this in my description box. Maybe my perfect CV. So what this does is you go on their website, you enter all your information, and then it lays it out for you. You can choose a format that you want, but it's done in a consistent manner and it's quite easy to read. So I would definitely recommend those two. CV should be no more than 2 pages. 2 pages is enough. If you have employment history that goes 50 years backwards, find a way to summarize it and find a way of just picking the key things that are relevant to the job. It's not necessary to put in any images. When it comes to your address, I would encourage you to put perhaps your town and the country you're applying for. If you're applying from the UK, I would still do the same. Put the town and put maybe the county you're applying for. It's important for privacy purposes not to share your address with the rest of the world. So these CVs are going online, so you don't really want your private information on there. No need for you to put your date of birth on there. That's personal, that's private to you. We don't need to know whether you're married or you're not married. That's not necessary, so that doesn't need to go on there. Pictures, I've seen some fancy CV with some fancy borders around it. That's not necessary. No need for a border. If you do put a border, just one line around it, black line is enough. Don't put anything that's perceived as negative. So I'm just going through the list of things that you shouldn't put on your CV. You don't need to tell us whether you're married, you're single, or you're not. That's not relevant in terms of you having a job. And also avoid putting too much detail, because you only have 2 pages to do this. Right, I'm going to move on to the structure of the CV. How should you structure your CV? So your CV should have your name and contact information. So you can put in your address, but without putting the street name and the house number. Put your address, put your email address. Make sure that your email address is professional. Don't put any emails with slangs. Probably first name, last name at something is professional enough. CV should have a summary, sort of a profile, objective profile. It should have skills and abilities. It should have a work employment history. It should have education and qualifications, and you can also put in hobbies. I'll talk about this. I'll talk about each one in detail. So I'm going to touch on professional profile. This is the start of the email. This is of your page of your CV. So this is what the employer sees first, and it's important that you nail it, because if they read the first line and the second line and it's reading beautifully and it's, you know, matching the job description, they're going to be they're going to want to carry on reading it. But if you get this part wrong, they're just going to dump it on the side and look for the next CV. So it's important you get this right. So make sure you use professional tone. So there are some times where you can put in information, just thinking of an example where you can say, I am a hardworking person. So you want to portray yourself in a professional tone. So you might want to say hardworking individual with nursing aid qualification. So that sounds a lot better than saying I'm a hardworking person. I enjoy working in a team. So make sure it's professional. I would say, you know, this is the part where you put in your soft skills, your work experience. It's really a nice summary that if you had an opportunity to sell yourself in those 3-4 lines, this is the time to do it. So it's a nice summary, making sure you're including your soft skills, your work experience, everything that makes you qualify for that job. I know this is easier said than done, but you've got to put some thought into it and work hard to get it to that standard. So I would say, for example, if you are an experienced person, I would say an experienced and well-qualified healthcare assistant with thorough working knowledge in residential care settings. This is a nice start. It just makes you want to read more. It makes you want to find out more about that person. If you haven't got experience, and you're changing your career path, this would be, I would put in something like, after spending 5 years in clothing industry, I decided to change a career path. This gives an insight to the employer as to who you are, what's your history, where you're coming from, and where are you going. So something like you need to also avoid being vague. So if you put something like, I'm a hardworking professional with strong ethic, and I'm able to work well in a team, that's not telling us a lot about you, about where you're coming from, about your work history. Anyone can put this information, so you've got to be careful. There's a thin line to getting it right and to getting it wrong. The next thing that I want to talk about is key skills. Key skills is the place where you nail it, because you usually, this is in bullet points. This is where you look at the job description and they're talking about, we're looking for someone who's able to communicate, we're looking for someone who's caring, someone who's got knowledge of this and knowledge of that. You want to use the words that have been used in the job description so that you can get the interview. Basically, this is the area that employers look at the most. So I would say look at the job description and make sure it matches. If you haven't got any experience, make sure you put things like soft skills. So I spoke about this in my interview video. If you haven't seen it, please watch it. Soft skills are more, they're transferable skills. So things like communication skills, team working, include all of these because they are needed if you're working as a healthcare assistant. Include them on your skills section. It is important to do so. So I would put things like patient safety, community or hospital setting, or personal care, first aid training, all those things that are relevant to care. Put that in as well. So I'm going to move on to experience. So your experience is basically, I would make sure that I put it in your most recent work. This is a bit tricky. I would put in, depending on what your history, if you have relevant experience that you've done recently, I would put in experience, then put relevant experience as a heading, and then put the name of the employer, the job title, the date you started and the date you ended. This is really important for all the work history. And then I would expect you to put the duties that you carried out. And at the bottom or at the top, I would expect you to put something like key achievements. And in this key achievements, put in something like, I was rewarded twice last year as the carer of the month, because based on the client's feedback. So really put things that will attract the employer to working with you or wanting to employ you. So it's important that you get the order right. If you have experience and most of your experience is within the care industry, I would say just put in your work history as normal, starting with the most recent one, going down. If you haven't got experience, really create a section that says relevant experience and put in all the experience that you've had, and then you can put other work history at the bottom. And if you haven't got much experience, I would put in the work that you've done, voluntary work, or any attachment or work history. Make sure you include that on your relevant experience section. Qualifications, this is quite key. If you have qualifications, this is the place to put your qualifications. So things like first aid, nursing aid, NVQ, manual handling, UK care certificate, or any other care certificate. This you don't put in your any other education that you've done. This is qualifications in relation to what you're applying for. This is what you put in qualifications. And then if you don't have relevant experience, I would encourage you to put education section as well, and just make sure that you put your education in as well, because it will count. Because when you're learning, you're given some teamwork, which will also help you. So I will do a different section. I will do a different video for those without experience. I'm trying to put it in, and I hope you find that useful. So do put in an education. Don't call it qualification, call it education, and just put the education that you've had. So I would say put in a further detail section and just end it as further details. So this is where you can put in that you've got your police clearance. We call this DBS in the UK. You're ready to start as soon as possible. Perhaps you can put in references available upon request if you wish. And this is really the things that I would expect if I'm reading a CV and I'm hiring someone. If you haven't got experience, I suppose I've talked about this in the video, make sure you try and get as much experience as you can. Usually it's not necessary, but the competition is stiff because everyone around the world is trying to come into the UK. So make sure you try and get some voluntary work. It might be with working with children, it might be working in a hospital, it might be working with elderly. Whether you're being paid or not, make sure you get yourself some experience. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to my channel. Share this video with anyone you think is going to find it interesting, and I wish you best of luck. If you want a template, I'll see if I can put a link in the description box, and then you can see a template that I've done. You can use this template if you wish, or you can use the template and change it to what you think is relevant. Thank you very much.